Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. This Tier 3 German premium medium tank, the Grosstraktor, is available for the next 2 days on the European server for €10. I'm going to let you know if it's worth it. The Grosstraktor is an absolute bizarre vehicle. I think it's firmly in contention for one of the most ugly vehicles in the game. And if only this rear turret worked, which looks like the caliber of it is about the same as the front. One of the specialities of this tank is it has the most hit points of any Tier 3 vehicle, so it's kind of a Tier 3 TOG, with 320 compared to the next best in class, which is 280. And it's a bloody good thing this thing gets so many hit points too, because its armor is wafer thin, 14mm at the front, 8 at the side and 8 at the rear, meaning that pretty much every single round that hits this tank is going to be able to penetrate, including high explosive rounds, which, trust me, take that 320 hit points away very quickly, especially when you have to start meeting the 105mm guns on the Tier 4 German tank destroyer, the Hetzer. And this vehicle can even meet M4 Shermans at Tier 5 with their 105mm guns, which are almost guaranteed to one-shot you. And considering this tank is a rather large target, it is so beautiful for artillery to hit. And that's something that you're going to have to worry if you're thinking about picking up one of these machines. Considering the size, the tank isn't that heavy. It's 16.5 tons, but its engine power, well, it's okay. It's 250 horsepower. The vehicle's mobility it's not bad. It's 44 kilometers an hour, top speed limit of 36 degrees a second, track traverse, which does allow this tank to get around at a reasonable rate. And the only thing really left to discuss about this tank is the armament that it gets. It gets this 7.5 centimeter gun that is very unusual. It fires just under 11 rounds a minute and has very low penetration with its armor-piercing rounds of 43 that will do 110 damage if they enter the target. This tank can fire heat rounds, however, that have 87mm of penetration, but really the specialization of this gun are the high explosive rounds, 38mm of penetration and 175 damage. Considering that the high explosive rounds only have 5mm less penetration than the AP rounds, you pretty much don't ever really need to fire AP in this tank. And that makes the Grosstraktor this very unusual Tier 3 medium with average kind of mobility, a huge amount of hit points, no armor whatsoever, and a derp gun. Unfortunately for the tank, it does get derp gun accuracy with 0.55, which is terrible, but fairly nice aim time for a derp gun of 2.2 seconds. Thankfully, this tank has some very nice view range, 330 meters, which puts it in the top 10 of view range of all Tier 3 vehicles, and when you combine that with binoculars, you can get some serious spotting distance if you can afford to be stationary. And there's also one final thing I should mention about this tank. Although it doesn't look it, this vehicle gets 12 degrees of gun depression, which allows it to work ridgelines quite well. Finally, if you do decide to pick up one of these vehicles, the tank actually has some quite okay spaced armor over the side. There's a big plate that is 6mm thick that supplements the tank's 8mm of side armor. And so if you do choose where you're going to get hit, you want to exaggerate the side armor of this tank a lot like a Matilda Black Prince, and just pray that a combination of the 6mm of spaced armor plus 15mm from the track and the 8mm of hull gives you a chance of absorbing anything. And trust me, that's a hell of a lot better than getting shot in the front with only 14mm. But I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's see how this absolute bizarre little tank performs in some gameplay. So we're going to have the pleasure of watching Luna Lupo playing in the Grosstraktor. I have to admit, I couldn't bring myself to playing this tank for you guys to get some footage on it. I know, I'm sorry. It's an okay tank, it's just really not my cup of tea at all. So the mobility of this Tier 3 German premium medium tank, not too bad, reaching 44 along the slope. Now we've hit the slope, we're going to be up to, well, what are we going to fall down to going up this rather steep slope on Himmelsdorf? Well, there goes the PZ-1C overtaking us, but it's doing a little bit of a wiggle, not worrying about that. Oh, look, there's another PZ-1C that's overtaking us. Talking about PZ-1Cs, when you've got 14mm of armor at the front and 8mm on some of the side armor and on the rear, can you imagine what that little autocannon does to you? It just takes your life away in the most brutal kind of way. And I tell you what, for some of the trolls of you out there who are thinking that a lot of people are going to be picking this tank up, you might want to go and jump into one of those and go and feast on some Grosstraktors. Now, Check out the 12 degrees of gun depression here. This is one of the nicest aspects of the tank. Luna Lupo puts his first shot as the Tetrarch, unable to penetrate him, but the second round certainly penetrates. 166 damage done there to that BT-7. I bet he's not feeling too happy for himself, shutting him down with the second shot received. And when you think about it, the BT-7 is very similar to this vehicle. Just a bit faster, slightly better rate of fire. Doesn't have the gun depression, though, that this tank has. And look how much this tank can control like this. Oh! The Grosstraktor establishing himself as the true derp at Tier 3. None of these BT-7s going around, hey? So from this position, Luna Lupo can get shots pretty much on all of his opponents. Another BT-7 artillery appears. One into him. And the second shot should finish him off. Good result. I have to admit, it's quite satisfying doing so much damage in this tank. 177 damage and having that kind of rate of fire with the high explosive rounds. Certainly is devastating. So, Luna Lupo is taking the ammo loadout that I would recommend on this tank. Pretty much a huge amount of high explosive ammunition, more than you could ever need to pretty much kill the entirety of the enemy team. But for when your high explosive rounds are just not good enough, then a few heat rounds, 87 millimeters of penetration will do work. Now he's not too far away from his opponents. He's probably only about 300 meters. But look how hard it is to be able to hit something with the derp gun here. It is truly tricky. That one failing to penetrate the side of the BT-7 artillery, doing 47 damage to him. Maybe the next one will hit. Nope! This guy is Neo. He is juking. He can tell where Luna Lupo is going to fire. Oh! Dashes to the right. I have to admit, this must be very frustrating. Lots of little scary light tanks down in the town. And Luna Lupo realizes that he is going to have to go back and defend the cap circle by the looks of it, as the PZ-1C and the PZ-2D on his team are batting out with a Tetrarch in the enemy base. Luckily, it looks like the enemies are not rushing into the cap circle. They're maybe a little bit hungry here for some blood, some Panzer 1 and 2 blood back in the base. So they aren't really rushing into the cap. However, 2 of them are in there. So Luna Lupo has now got 25 seconds to be able to get into the cap circle. And luckily, 44 kilometers an hour top speed limit does allow this tank to shift. To hopefully be able to get back in time. 15 seconds left. Where are the enemies? There is the T-26. Just one shot that poor little bugger, that Tier 3 Soviet light tank. And the PZ-1C is actually bouncing off Luna Lupo here. That is bizarre when you consider how thin the frontal armor is on this tank. Some of the rounds are still going in, and Luna Lupo penetrates the PZ-1C doing 187, and then puts another round into him, doing 3 damage. That's the 3rd time he had hit him this round. Here comes another BT-7 artillery. Oh, it goes right over the top, and the BT-7 artillery misses him as well. Can he put the 2nd round in? Just about 45 damage, I believe, splashing him and not actually hitting him directly. He repairs his tracks, turns his gun, penetrates the BT-7 artillery, finishing him off, and turns his attention to this Cruiser Fear. Just to clarify, that T-26 is a Tier 2 light tank. I was wondering how he managed to one-shot him. Oh gosh, that Cruiser Fear takes a huge amount of damage away from him there. 3 penetrating rounds very quickly indeed, but he turns, finishes off the medium 3, picking up his 8th kill of the game, 1,411 damage so far, and all he has to do is try and find the PZ-1C. It's got 49 hit points left. It was quite interesting when he was getting peppered by the other PZ-1C. I guess when you angle the armor like this, even 14 millimeters of armor, if it hits the lower plate or the upper plate, is going to ricochet occasionally. About half of the rounds managing to penetrate his tank, or just under. But that vehicle does have very poor penetration. The problem is when the PZ-1C gets you at point-blank range and just shoots you in your front plate or shoots you in the rear, it's just horrendous. And it's very frustrating as well. Remember, this tank can meet up to Tier 5 vehicles. This is perfect matchmaking for the Grosstraktor, but really, I couldn't find any good footage of this tank taking on tier 5 tanks, because I guess it doesn't really happen unless it's at very long range and the enemy vehicle is stationary. What do you think your 38 millimeters of penetration is going to do to a KV-1? Not a lot. But I'm not sure if this PZ-1C is AFK or not. Looks like he might have crashed, and that allows Luna Lupo to finish him off, secure his 9th kill for 1,585 damage. So I don't think that Luna Lupo was truly tested in this game. I believe he's a much better player than to be hanging around in the Grosstraktor this much, and really it was just a bit of filthy seal clubbing, which is another reason why I'm not really interested in playing this tank. It either feels like you get in a nice matchup like this, and you kind of dominate it with those high explosive rounds that this tank has, and the fairly nice rate of fire, or alternatively, you go and bash your head against tier 5 opponents again and again and again. One thing that should be mentioned is that the BT7 artillery players on the enemy team, all highly respectable as well. They were just bombing it around, probably underestimating the horrible tank slug that is the Grosstraktor. And that's one thing for certain, is that you shouldn't underestimate this 75mm gun, otherwise it's going to shut you down very hard indeed. So let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. So Luna Lupo picked up a high caliber here, a top gun, a defender, and the one that everyone wants, but not really at tier 3, the Kolobanov's medal. 1,423 base experience points. This vehicle does get a huge amount of bonus premium experience for being at low tier of 1,281, making this tank fairly okay for crew training purposes, but really awful for making credits, as we can see here. Only 35,000 credits, even with a premium account for this kind of a game, which is really 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. With Luna Lupo getting 7,686 experience for his triple in this 6.5-minute round. So I guess it comes down to the conclusion, is the Grosstraktor worth it? Well, in my opinion, unless you're a tank collector, I would recommend that you skip out on this one. Sure, when you could get into a matchup like this and play as well as Luna Lupo did, you can have a good time, but more often than not, you're going to be having Hetzers one-shotting you. You're going to have artillery focus firing you because you're such a large, juicy, easy to pen target. And don't even get me started when you have to play against KV-1s. It just really doesn't feel worth it. Nevertheless, if you're a tank collector or this looks like your kind of gameplay, then you can't really go wrong at 10 euros. But if you really must have a tier 3 German medium tank, then why not pick up the Panzerkampfwagen S35 739F with its fairly meaty armor that you can angle well, and a crazy rate of fire on this 47mm gun with practically no aim time. If I had to play a low tier tank, I know which one I would pick. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And also, I'm going to try something new in this video. Click that more info icon in the top right hand corner of your screen to vote in a poll whether you think this tank is worth it or not. And also let me know your opinions in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.